It seems like it's Tal's photo here. Tal couldn't join us today, so I'm going to replace him, but I like having him on stage anyways.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark from Fuse.
Beni from Tectona. Great to be here. Mark, it's been a while since we've been on stage together. And it seems like the topic is, it's bigger than most of us. I think that many of the people here are here because they think that it's not just a bubble. But let's try to kind of elaborate on why. Go ahead.
Yes, so first of all, I think this is a provocative title, but I really think there's like some philosophical discussion to be made. But I'll just go like with the numbers. Right now, crypto is not even slightly close to mainstream adoption. If we're looking at metrics, on-chain metrics, and actual usage in crypto, in Web3, in crypto gaming and NFTs, you can see that the big promise is not there yet, and like the market that can actually understand the technology or access it is right now mostly investors or degens or developers. So those are like the three groups, and it's like not more than, like we're not touching billions of people yet, not even close. With the ideas, of course, billions of people heard the ideas, but who actually interacted with the technology, I think right now it's no more than 20 million people, like who are active users, and people that actually are able to understand this technology. So I think this is not how a bubble looks like yet.
Definitely, and if I look, at the past, and we talk about late 90s, kind of what happened with the last bubble, the internet Web 2 bubble, we know that there were many attempts to kind of find a right business model to why do we need internet, why exactly the mass adoption is going to happen there. And we saw many, many different websites, applications, and most of them failed. And the first kind of interesting application was actually Amazon, where we saw that there is a company, there's a website, that right now can sell millions of different books, and they don't own their own shop or store at the middle of New York. And this is basically where mass adoption starts, because we're talking about the long tail. And that's where internet comes into play, when you talk about the long tail of anything, where it's many people can take their own choice at a matter and just bring it to life through a great application. And it's only a matter of time until blockchain finds its unique advantage. And we see many, many different applications of this today, and Fuse is one of them.
Yeah, so I think I've been in the space for almost a decade, and I watched like all the cycles, and I can say that pretty much most of the interesting companies were created in the bear markets. Like the most interesting ideas got funded right after the bubble burst. And I can give millions of examples. Ethereum is a great example. Where the fundraise was in 2015 in one of like the biggest crypto winters, 2015-16. Things like Uniswap 2018, in like after the market dropped 80%, 85%. You got something like Uniswap, which I think sounds very similar to Amazon, in my opinion. It was like a aha moment, like one kid just wrote a contract, launched it online, didn't build a backend, didn't build none of the money in those contracts is not his. It doesn't get any fees. It's not an exchange. It's not regulated anywhere.
We can talk about this later, if it's exchange or not exchange, and then what the SEC thinks about it. But
yeah, no, but the bottom line, it's an American company. It doesn't matter where it's established. It has a token even. People poured billions into it. It was a one-man show. One person built it, Hayden, the CEO. This is like the best example of Web3 that I know. You can see 70% of the volume goes through it. There's a really good model behind it. heavily inspired by Bencor formula, but basically the guy looked at the Bencor formula and said, oh, I can make it better. And he just wrote a contract, and today it's like, on par with the volume on Coinbase. So we're talking about, and it's not an exchange to like, no order book, no matching engine, no backend. It's really just a contract that they launched. They don't even have the permissions to change anything, so they're always like moving V2, V3. And I think for like the Web3 vision to happen, this is a good example. Although I think the days that a single person can launch something like Amazon, it's not we're not there anymore. But Fuse really came from this idea that people can do very powerful stuff if they don't need to be a bank or regulated in like as a bank. In Israel, we didn't have a new bank for the last 50 years. There's zero competition. So for places like Israel, I think something like crypto and blockchain should be, a really big opportunity. So I think Fuse really got inspired by a lot of those ideas. We're not looking to be regulated in Israel, but we're building products that Israel can access, that people can build, are not necessarily for speculation, and this vision of Web3, of open source financial services, is something that I think is definitely, this is definitely not a bubble yet.
Yeah. One of the things that when, like this morning when I found out that I'm here, I thought about what I want to say when it comes to why I think it's not a bubble and which applications I know today that blockchain has and no one really heard of, and are actually like the Amazon of blockchain. And when I think about this, there are a few companies that I don't know if many of you heard, but there's Spotify on Web3. It's called Emanate, another company called Audios, and they basically allow different singers or bands to connect to their platform and just save the third party, which is Spotify. So they own 100% of the profit that they make. So that's one example. Another example is more, we saw that in the media yesterday with Adam Neumann and carbon emission. And the fact that carbon emission can be traded through a blockchain company, through a blockchain entity, and allows for multi-party to collaborate. Because at the end of the day, we see in our group 3 main use cases for blockchains. One of them is underground, let's say underground activity, which we don't want to talk about, things that are illegal. Another thing is governance. Basically, any form of governance, DAOs, voting, that can be made through blockchains. And the third is collaboration between organizations. So the way to collaborate without even knowing the person that you're interacting with, the company that you're interacting with. So any company can basically interact with any other company without knowing one another. No trust is needed. And these 2 examples that I gave actually goes with the third use case for blockchain. So collaboration seems like the best example of how blockchains can be used and why this is not a bubble, since we need more trustless collaboration. When the world is becoming smaller, when more people and companies are growing and creating every day, there is no reason for me as a startup, when I want to work with Microsoft, for example, I don't need to migrate to their own cloud, because if I'm a startup, I'm usually using either AWS or Google for that, Google Cloud. And through blockchain, sorry if a Microsoft person is here, I'm sorry. But through blockchain, I can just interact with a smart contract of Microsoft, and that will settle the deal. So we're talking about a new wave of collaborative efforts that are being done by smart contracts. And that, I think this is what is my passion in this field. The fact that we're going through a revolution in this space, in trustlessness. And
I think, when we talk about is it just a bubble, it's easy to forget that right now crypto is more like a marketplace of ideas. So I think some of those ideas are like have a price tag on them, and then you can start say, oh, that's a bubble. But in reality, bubbles, you know, if something is, you know, it's like in marketing cycles, usually there's like everybody are talking about it, nobody doing it, and then everybody are doing it and nobody's talking about it. So nothing in the world disappears. This is like implied from like the word bubble, that, you know, it bursts and everybody forget, but in reality, you know, people still trade tulips, and pretty much no bubble disappeared. The bubbles maybe change, but they never disappear, especially when it's technology. Technology needs to be, you know, transparent. It's not a speculation. You know, it's really not a good place to mix ideology and technology. Investors usually, you know, when something succeeds in a large scale, technology is a transparent part of it. So speculating about ideas and saying, oh, this is a bubble, this will disappear, is just like not a smart thing to do. So that's one thing. The other thing is that we're living in a world that has like very limited choice. Like we're starting to get like more needs, but we have very limited choice. Like in North America, if you want to process payments, you have like 3, 4 options. There's like really, and all of them cost the same thing pretty much and have the same offering. It's kind of cartel, if you would ask me. You can go like Spotify, for instance, a good example. We're hearing more music than ever, but you know, we can't pay the artists. There's a lot of problems like that. You know, we pay, like here, there's more streaming, there's more music than ever, there's much less royalties than ever, because there's no more direct sell of records. And I can go on and on. Like every vertical has problems of centralization. Now creators have like maybe 3, 4, 5 options. I can count them on one hand of platforms where they can access their communities. You know, I can go like pretty much on every vertical and see the potential of some democratization, a little bit. Not even saying the word blockchain.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we had an experience in Africa, and we tried to bank the unbanked, basically, because there are a lot of people in the world that does not have a bank account. They use mainly cash, and I can say it wasn't successful. I think the technology wasn't there yet. The scaling solution were not there, but I think that's another opportunity for the blockchain space in general, when we don't talk about only the modern society, but mainly third world countries and places that don't have that ability. And I think we can go and see many, many more transactions happening in these spaces once bank accounts and payments can be made there through, not through a bank, not through a centralized payment system, but through a painless, hopefully, a payment mechanism that is blockchain validated.
Mm-hmm. And I can add also that, like a little bit about our local local angle, that not a lot of people talk about it. They talked about it in 2017, but it's really like a big thing that, you know, kind of hard to wrap your head around. This idea that most of the capital formation to build the internet came from a very small amount of people, like a very small group in the Silicon Valley. It's not even, you know, in Europe, you didn't see like capital formations, you know, to back companies like Google or like the money usually comes from the same usual group of people, the same VCs, the same areas in the world. And blockchains are geographically distributed. You can already see this today. You can see the like ecosystems around specific verticals, but also around geographies. And Ethereum is very, very North America. A little bit of Europe, like just a tiny bit.
Polygon India.
Yeah, Polygon India, Terra, South Korea.
Nowhere. No.
No, maybe it's not clear. You know, Tether is nowhere. We have a very interesting ecosystem, which happens really organically. If the founders are Indian, naturally they'll have good fiat rams, good banking connections, good connections with the regulators. The companies in that area use it as their sandbox. They get like promoted there. They get more exposure. They get more help. They get better tutorials at the very least. So I really think that this is something to look at. The fact that democratization for investment, being able to collect money from pretty much anywhere in the world, that's a game changer. And to build like a little bit more equal internet, not only waiting for Google to come to my town. I remember Kolu, when like my previous company, when we started building a wallet here in Israel, everybody was telling us it was in 2015, 16. Why? Like Apple Pay, Google Pay. It took like 7 years, and still I wouldn't say everything. There's not a lot of fintech here, still.
All right. Before I go, I would comment on that. I would say that we see more and more things that are currently in 2.0 going 3.0. And the amount of companies, the amount of people that we're talking about every day that want to migrate to 3.0 is just increasing a lot, especially in these times, especially when it's a bear market. And it's a builder's market. So feel free to come, talk to me or the team. We'd love to have you either as developers, entrepreneurs, and let's get out of this cycle and into a bull market as soon as possible. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.